Alright, please play again. Okay, guys. So, why is it important to structure your freeze time? Well, you have 15 seconds where you have to deliver your tactics. The in-game leader has to deliver the call. You have to figure out what buy the opponent has. You have to think about the tendencies of what they have done for the prior rounds, and if you either on the CD side should stack some side, or if you should do a specific call based on some information you've gotten from previous rounds. Now you have 15 seconds to deliver this to your team as an in-game leader, and this is where the freeze time structure is super important. It's actually vital for structuring a good T side and getting a good T side running. So for the first 2 or 3 seconds, you take a look at the scoreboard. You see, okay, how many people are alive, were alive the previous rounds, what were the loss bonus, and then you try to calculate what kind of buy the enemies are gonna have. And then you give it terms like if they eco, well, what does it mean if they eco? Okay, well, then maybe they do not have armor and just they don't have armor. Or is it a full eco, then they only have USPs, you know? You don't have to structure it that much, but you have to come up with these terms. So if you say eco, that means, okay, pistols, no armor. That's maybe the key thing is like no armor. Then you say semi-buy, that means, okay, well, they have armor, might have some SMGs, might have some deagles, okay, and then you say full buy, that might be where they buy everything, and then you have these 3 categories, right? But then there's like variables that can change. So in a full buy, there might be scenarios where they would not have many nades or won't have can't afford an AWP. So how will you say that to your team? How will you communicate that? What way will you communicate it? Do you just want to say like they're full buy but no AWP, or full buy low nades, right? So these are some terminology that you have to talk about on your team, and then have a person who's not the in-game leader. That's my recommendation, at least. You have some person who is not the in-game leader taking charge and talking about the economy for the first 2 or 3, maybe 5 seconds of the freeze time. And then the in-game leader has free reign to call whatever he wants to call for the remainder of the freeze time. Now, what's important here in the remainder of the freeze time also is to do not buy anything before the in-game leader has made a call. So if the in-game leader has made a call that you maybe smoke top mid and triple nade window, okay? If everyone buys and everyone has 2 flashes, well, then you can't do that call, even though the in-game leader wanted to do it, because he maybe saw a tendency of the AWP always being in window left side, or I don't know, maybe nading bottom connector. I mean, you get the point, right? So it's really important that you do not buy before the in-game leader has called anything. What if you call a specific rush strat and then you maybe have 3600, so you have maybe 3700, but you're the one who needs to have some nades because you're not one of the entries, right? So okay, well, if you call a B rush and maybe player 3 is the guy who has to smoke one of the McDonald's smokes, but he only have 3700 dollars, and he buys, you know, before the in-game leader has called and before the economy has been talked about, then you can't certainly do that call unless everyone knows the grenades of every execute and the entire philosophy of an execute or a rush in that sense. And also what's really important is that when the round is over, you have to be quiet at the start of the freeze time, because there's a lot of time that gets wasted by saying, oh my god, oh, did you see that kill I got last round? I mean, oh my god, he was so instant, you know, all these useless like comments that, yeah, it doesn't, like, in a competitive environment, they shouldn't be there, because you need to focus on the next round. And this is something that you can practice both when you play Faceit Pucks and matchmaking, but also in your team game, like in your team. Do not just come out with all these like stupid, oh, he was so lucky, or oh my god, what a shot, you know. Mute your microphone, say the information fast, and then do not talk about it at the start of the freeze time. So that's a tendency that's really common with younger players, or with a lot of Faceit heroes or poggers in general. Is they say, oh, after the die, oh my god, he was so lucky, and then he say one default. instead of saying one default and then muting your mic and saying, then you can say whatever you want, because then you don't distract your teammates, right? Instead of saying, or maybe you die as the window player, you peek and you die, and then you say, oh no, mate, you know. And in the time that you have that you've complained and taken your time, they might even have a guy rushing and already being connector, and then your connector player might die off of it because you haven't given the information fast enough. To be precise and concise when it comes to information. And this is like it's the same thing applies to the CT side. Okay, be quiet for the first maybe you know, you can say some compliments like well played on B, and then say, okay, well guys, they have a half buy here, so stay on side. And then then you know, okay, well if they have a half buy, then you know, okay, well we have to play retake on A and stay on side on B, and then just let them have like, and then maybe just play safe around middle. Just give them the long fights, right? And so you don't lose to like some kind of palace pop or some kind of B rush because your short player is out here, you know. So it's really important that you think about like the structure, right? So the structure is set, right? But then you also need to find out what it is you need to do. So you talk about, okay, well if they have an eco, what do we do? Okay, if they have a half buy, what do we do? If they have a full buy, what do we do? We know for a fact that you should not make aggressive plays with rifles or the AWP if they have a half buy or a eco buy. This is the general philosophy that I have, and it's because you do not want to donate a rifle over to the opponents when they have a lesser buy. So that means that you have to stay safe you have to stay safe on your extremities and where you play on sides, and have some clear fundamentals and some clear like things that you have talked about, and this is how you talk about it. Okay, and then when you have a full buy, that's where you can change it up and maybe do something aggressive. So in general, this is just a few quick tips, but it's really, really, really important that you take your time and talk about these things. It's the same as with setups. So what setups can you use versus full buy? What setups can you use versus half buy or eco? Right? Or what should you be careful about if they're eco? Then look, take a map as take a map like Mirage, and then you're on the CT side, and then say, okay, well if they have eco, what should you be scared about? Well, you should maybe be scared about the waterfall out palace, right? Where like 4 guys go palace and they flash over and then they rush down and try to plant the bomb. So if you're sitting in default and they're doing this, you're probably gonna die, and they're gonna get more out of the round than what they actually intended to with getting a kill. So and what else? Well, you can be scared of maybe a top mid smoke and then they quadruple nade window, because that's a very common thing to do as well. Okay, well how do you take measures against that? And then you can talk about, well, if they do some kind of B rush or maybe a B contact play, okay, well how do you prevent that in a good setup, right? So that like identify the most common eco and small buy plays that they're gonna make. For example, like another one, you know, you can, if you throw this flash in middle, you're gonna blind the window guy, and then you can swing out top mid with deagles, right? But then the AWPer should know, okay, well if he stays up here, then he wouldn't be blind by a flash like that, so he can kill them if they try to do that. So be like identify what they can do on ecos, and the same with the T side. Well, if the CT side have an eco or a half buy, what is the most common thing to do? Well, it's either to push early round or stack a side, right? So you need to buy a Mac 10 or some kind of lesser weapon, or at least have some kind of plan to gather information to see if they have stacked a side, and then be ready to react on the opposite end of the map. So all of this in general is something that you can use and set up way easier and practice way better and more efficiently if you have set up your freeze time correctly. So yeah.